Hello, welcome to Cinema Savvy, and welcome back to a brand new movie review. I'm Chris, joined with Tate tonight, and Nicola. This is your second time on the channel, following which Battle of the Brackets were you on? I can't even remember which one you were on.
It was long ago. It
was a long time ago. But all three of us are joined to give our review on Bad Times at the El Royale, which is directed by Drew Goddard. It is obviously the 2018 American neo-noir thriller film starring many people, including but not limited to Jeff Bridges. First off, we need to talk about the release of this film, because I don't know if we saw it on opening day, but we saw it pretty close to the time. We were going to do a review for this last week, but the fact of the matter is, like for Tate and even for George as well, like your cinemas weren't playing this movie.
So this was being played at my local cinema one time over the last 2 weeks, which is crazy because we have 3 cinemas in our town. And it's 2 Cineworld cinemas and 1 Empire cinemas, and it was only showing in one of the Cineworlds, the smaller Cineworld actually. They tend to show the independent movies and the movies that they're not going to do wide release on in the one that's in town center. They were showing it in the one that was actually out of town, which was kind of, I guess it was lucky for me because the other showings were going to be in Reading, which is like almost an hour away. So that was a very interesting thing because I thought this would be a bigger film. It's got such a huge cast list, and I've seen trailers for it everywhere. YouTube, I've seen posters up for it. It's crazy that this film had such a limited release, which makes me completely question what actually happened with the release and just in general. But yeah, I managed to get to my screening. It was a audio described screening, so there was a couple of people in there with headsets. Other than that, it was a completely unaffected screening. It was a pretty full screening. I think it was a full screening because it was the only screening that was showing. But yeah, very unusual release, I think.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember how big the audience was when we went to see it. I think there were a decent amount of people in there.
There was quite a few people there, yeah.
And everyone seemed into it. Like there wasn't much talking. Like everyone was reacting accordingly to the movie, and everyone seemed like they were having a good time. But yeah, I don't know what happened with the release with this thing because it seemed like they were gearing up for a big release. I mean, my local cinema did on the opening day 3 showings, and then since then it's just been 1 per night. George's cinema straight up aren't playing it, and you had to travel quite a bit, didn't you, to get to
yours? I had to still travel to get to it, a bit further than I would have wanted to, but it's a very unusual thing for a major Hollywood movie with a director who's done films in the past, like Drew Goddard has done Cabin in the Woods. He's going to be directing the X-Force film if it comes out. He's also done producing for Lost, The Martian, Daredevil, so many different things.
He's written a lot of movies as well, hasn't he? And it seems like now he's definitely got his stamp. Like Cabin in the Woods, for example. I absolutely loved that movie. I remember seeing that film, and I think it was just me and my best friend went to see it. And we loved it, and we understood what the movie was trying to say. Obviously, it was like a take and like a pastiche on horror movies and the genre itself, and expectations of horror movies. Everyone else went into it just expecting like a regular horror movie. I went in with the pretense knowing that there was more to the movie than the trailers were letting on. Like there was definitely more to it than meets the eye, and I love that. And I guess you could kind of say the same with this movie as well. If you're talking about the film itself, and I'm gonna, not give anything away, we're gonna do spoiler free at first. It is a film about a place, like a hotel, a place where you stay, where there's more going on behind the scenes that initially it lets on. And that's probably like the only plot synopsis I can give without giving anything away.
So we actually have the IMDb synopsis here. Circa 1968, several strangers, most with a secret to bury, meet by chance at Lake Tahoe's El Royale, a rundown hotel with a dark past. Over the course of one night, everyone will show their true colors before everything goes to hell. Which I guess describes the film.
And comparatively, I don't know if you got this comparison as well. We said how much it reminded us of a Quentin Tarantino movie. Namely Hateful Eight, where you're bringing in these collection of people and they're talking, they're getting to know each other, and you can tell that everyone's got a shady side to them. Even down to the fact, and I didn't even know this, that oh wait, no, never mind. I completely looked at the wrong musician who did the music. Never mind, I was going to do another comparison there.
But, I was going to say I got a lot of I got vibes from a film which is actually almost forgotten completely from memory now, with the Golden Circle, Kingsman.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The actual setting of the hotel itself reminded me of, is it called Candyland or whatever it's called?
Oh, yes, yeah.
From the film.
Mm.
I got very similar vibes to that. And I also, I don't know why, but I picked up some Wes Anderson vibes. Maybe it was the set piecing and the kind of muted colors that were in the hotel towards the start of the film. But it definitely becomes more Tarantino-esque the further you go on. Especially with, I will say, the way that the story was told, not only the way the characters were introduced. This doesn't really go into spoilers because it's seen in the trailer, but basically there are a lot of characters who come to the hotel, and I'll say that it's not exactly told in a linear order. Mm-hmm. The film itself is told from several points of view, and then it all comes together towards the end. This kind of storytelling I absolutely love. I love it being done in TV series. I love it as far as murder mystery films. I think they do it almost best in that sense. So you get to hear everyone's points of view before actually finding the full picture. I think the best film for that is Rashomon, one of the most famous Japanese cinema films of all time. Mm. But yeah, this film is a very unique film from this year. And if I'm going off first impressions, I quite enjoyed it.
I will
Probably
say
not as much as you did.
Yeah,
not as much as you did.
I insanely hyped this movie up to you to the point where you was like, Chris, like you did your picture of the ticket stub on our social media links, and then you went like, Chris, if this film disappoints, like I'm coming for you. And,
I will say it didn't disappoint. You said it was going to be better than A Star Is Born, though, and it was not better than A Star Is Born.
I think it was better than A Star Is Born.
Don't get me wrong. We love, all of us on this channel right now loved A Star Is Born, and we all had an emotional reaction to it. They're very different films to compare, like any kind of movie, unless you're, bringing it up, whether it's a remake or if it's within the same genre as a particular movie. It's very difficult to compare a movie. I was more entertained at this movie, and I think that because I went into this completely cold, I had seen a trailer, but it seemed very... Suicide Squad-ish, a little bit, like this collection of sort of like this ragtag team of like sort of shady people, and the music they were plastering over it, and like the bright neon kind of tone that was going for it. It did remind me a little bit of that. Obviously,
you weren't hyped for it though. You were going, oh, it's not going to be good.
I was curious about it.
Yeah, but you didn't think it was going to be that great.
No.
You didn't. Straight from the get-go, you're like, oh, it's not going to be that good.
But I did like Cabin in the Woods, and I was more intrigued by it than actual hype, I would say. But no, and like going back to the structure, I think that the non-linear style really aided the movie. I was never bored by it. I was swept up into this mystery. I wanted to see where the story went. I was fascinated with these characters and their interactions. I don't think there's like a dud person in this cast, in all honesty. I think everyone absolutely gives it their A game. Jeff Bridges is fantastic in this movie. He usually is anyway, but there's a particular scene in this movie which I'll talk about in spoilers where like I was like, give this guy the Oscar. Like it was this really emotional performance from him. John Hamm's always great to see as well, from the likes of Baby Driver, and that guy needs to play the comedian in HBO's Watchmen show, or like an age
he does
or something.
He really does. He even looks like him, which is very interesting. I think it was the first time I watched Watchmen. I can't name the actor who plays the comedian right off the top of my head. But I honestly
Jeffrey
thought
Dean Morgan.
It was Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, no, yeah, same. I had a Watchmen poster, and for the longest time I thought it was Robert Downey.
And then I think it was a moment where I clicked. It's just like, oh, it's a fatter version of Robert Downey Jr. Holy shit, it's not Robert Downey Jr. But no, John Hamm could easily play that character.
Yeah.
I could also say that John Hamm could also play Night Owl. I think he's one of those people who could play one of those two characters very easily. And I think the characters are probably the strongest point of this film. Each individual character at the hotel has their motivations, and they're clearly set out from the off. And you do have some mysteries which are only really solved towards the end, but at the same time, the character interactions and the character introductions themselves were done very well. The humor in this film is also done very well. It isn't listed down as a comedy; it's listed down as a crime drama mystery. I would throw comedy into there because I did laugh a couple of times.
In there. Yeah.
But maybe that's down to the script. I know that Cabin in the Woods is a horror film, but everyone laughs at Cabin in the Woods. So dark humor I would apply definitely to this film. The music was very Motowny. This is 1968. It's California and Nevada, so Motown is still quite a big thing in society. I personally think that there was some parts of the movie where that theming didn't fit.
Okay.
They tried to make it work, and it just didn't fit.
What do you?
Yeah,
have?
which bits?
So I can't go into that until we go into spoilers.
Oh yeah.
See, I would completely disagree with you there.
Yeah.
I think that's the entire antithesis of Cynthia Erivo's character, who I really loved in the movie as well. Like, I know we said like everyone's great. She kind of gets to a point where she becomes the main character almost, and you kind of follow her arc throughout the movie. She gave a very emotional, believable, vulnerable, yet strong performance all the way throughout. And I think that the music obviously is so tied to her. This isn't giving anything away. She is a Motown singer. And that theme plays all the way throughout the movie. One of the scenes in this movie, and I'm not going to give it away until spoilers, is one of the tensest scenes I've seen all year. And that song, like, that is everything. There's there's two scenes in the movie that are the most tense I've seen all year, which involve a Motown song.
Yeah, I know which one you're on about.
And like, no, I think that was an absolutely crucial element of the film. Like, obviously with, you could argue with some Tarantino movies when he puts music in, it's done just for style because he's trying to emulate either a certain period of cinema or he's trying to, get that kind of style towards it. And maybe sometimes that can take you out of the movie if he uses like a really old, like martial art TV show theme that doesn't really clash with the images, but obviously it's nostalgic for him. It's a time back. I never had that with this movie. It's obviously the time, it's the setting, it's tied to the character. And I think that those musical moments really elevated the movie for me. They didn't detract or distract me from the movie or what was going on.
It wasn't maybe a detraction of sorts. I just didn't feel like it fit completely into some of the scenes.
Okay.
We will go into that a little bit later on. I do have to say that the singing from Cynthia, cannot pronounce that last name, Erivo, was incredible. Really, really well done. I think I may have liked her character the most out of everyone in the hotel. But that's also down to everyone's motivations for why they're there and what they're doing there. This film is very violent. I will say that. It's unwaveringly violent, and that's something that I would give as a massive positive for this film. You see a lot of films where if a gunshot goes off, they'll cut away, or if there is a scene of violence, they'll show kind of the, when people are fighting, it'll be like whip hands and shit like that. You can see the punches not connecting with someone. This film does violence right. This film does violence that you can see on screen and immediately feel every single time it hits, every single shot that's fired, everything that takes place. You actually feel like you're in that situation, even though the situation is very outlandish. So I'll give credit to that. Is there anything else we want to talk about?
One of my favorite characters, I don't know if you liked his character. For the longest time, we thought it was Tom Holland in the movie. Miles. He looked a lot like Tom Holland. It's Lewis Pullman. I actually haven't seen anything he's done. He doesn't even have a credit on Wikipedia. I think he does on IMDb, but I haven't seen any of his movies. What did you think to the Miles character?
I thought he was great.
I think he was one of the best written in the movie.
When it came, can't go to the end bit.
We can't go to the end bit. A really emotional character though. Like, we're introduced to him and is this very mild-mannered, like timid concierge character. But as the movie goes on, there are so many layers to this guy. He does have a very dark past, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
His acting was phenomenal.
Yeah, and absolutely all the way through. I'm not even going to be ashamed to admit it. Like, I cried like at least twice in this movie, and two of those moments were probably down to his acting and his character. If we'll go into spoilers in a minute because obviously it's such a difficult movie to talk about. My recommendation, I would absolutely recommend this movie. This is an original movie, which is so refreshing now. It's not an adaptation. It's not another superhero movie. It's an original movie that I knew nothing about. It's a very entertaining story. It's a story that develops. It is quite a long movie, and it did feel long. It's about 2 hours 20, maybe just slightly over. And I know I was reading some of the reviews from like Rotten Tomatoes, and a lot of people have drew criticism to the runtime.
I didn't think it was that bad.
But I was kind of swept up in it. I didn't mind.
Towards the end, because I'd say that this film has it definitely has something that should be a finite ending, and it does have like an extra scene almost tacked on. And it did make me kind of look at my watch and go, okay, how much longer do we have of this film? So the runtime did stick with me a little bit. I think it flowed perfectly well for the first maybe 2 hours, but then it starts to kind of, you feel it in like the final 20 minutes. You kind of start to get some fatigue. But that happens with some films. I've loved some films which have gone on for over 3 hours. And even though I felt, oh, wow, this is really going on for a long time, if you're into a film, it's okay. And you can be okay with it. The fact that I looked at my watch didn't say that I didn't like the film. Because once again, I want to state, I liked the film, Chris. I did like the film.
I oversold it. I may have oversold it to you.
I think you did oversell it.
I can see the criticism that the movie's too long, and maybe they could have shaved like 10 minutes here or something like that. But I loved every frame of this movie. What I did say though after watching it, and it will be an interesting experiment, is that now that we know the mystery, now that we know the plot about the movie and how the story unfolds, how well would it hold up on a second viewing when you know everything that's coming?
So if I was going to compare this to A Star is Born, a film which I absolutely adore from this year, I think that this has a bigger rewatchability factor than A Star is Born. But I prefer A Star is Born, if that makes sense. So this is the kind of film where you can go back and watch it multiple times and probably still get a lot of enjoyment from it. A Star is Born is maybe a once every single year you watch it, you go back, you have a reminder of what the film's like. This film has loads of different, I'm sure there are loads of different points that you can pick up on looking throughout this film. Another film that reminds me of is Baby Driver in its toning. And I think that has a really big rewatchability factor. So I think this film will hold up if it draws people in. And that can only happen if it's being given more dates of screenings and stuff like that.
Do you think this will get nominated at anything?
Best Screenplay
Awards, Best Screenplay, maybe.
Jeff Bridges, Best Supporting Actor. Yeah, maybe Best
Editing, maybe. I don't know.
I wouldn't put it in for editing. No, that's probably it. It's a difficult film because it is an original concept. It is a little bit out there and not like many other films. And with a lot of Oscar categories, you have to tick boxes to get into them. And this film is a very good film, but it doesn't tick all the boxes.
I feel like we've talked quite a lot. What would your overall?
I don't know what to say without spoiling it.
Just your overall opinions on the movie. Would you recommend the film?
I would recommend it. I think it's a very good film. I think it was great acting. Very tense moments, which you want in a movie.
Yeah. I guess that would. It kind of reminded me of like a Cluedo movie. You know, the Tim Curry movie Clue. I could absolutely see that. Going back to Tarantino, this is what Hateful Eight wishes it could have been, in my opinion.
I agree with that.
I really didn't care for Hateful Eight. That there was so much hype behind that. The fact that it was shot on 70mm film, I think.
Yeah.
And that's probably one of Tarantino's most forgettable movies, in all honesty. I've watched it once and I don't really have any inclination of going back to it.
I completely agree. He had a golden age, I'd say, where he was bringing out films such as Django Unchained, Inglourious Bastards. And since those, it's just kind of dropped off heavily.
I may have even preferred this movie to Django Unchained. I know a lot of people love that movie. I was very cool towards it.
No.
I'm actually with Tayte on that one.
Okay.
Chris, calm down now.
Again, like this movie, in your opinion, Django went on for about half hour way too long. Like there was a point in that movie where it should have ended and that carried on.
Those end scenes were just too much.
Yeah. And unfortunately, we had to see Tarantino act as well and do an Australian accent, which no one needs to see that.
Oh, isn't too bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we've said everything that we physically can for spoiler free. So if you haven't seen Bad Times at the El Royale, please go and watch it. Please support this movie. It's an original movie. It's a great time. You will not be disappointed. Tayte may have been slightly disappointed, but
I'm not disappointed. No, because I enjoyed the film.
I'm just disappointed.
No, I just think that it's got its flaws. I'd happily watch it again. I enjoyed the experience. I do have some deep flaws with it, though, which we'll go into when we get into spoilers.
Okay, so that is your final warning. Click off, go watch the movie, come back to us. If it's playing in a cinema near you, if not, then I guess just wait until it comes out on home video. It might be a good few months before you come back to this video. Spoilers, where do we even start with this thing? Because it seems like every single scene of this movie is a spoiler.
Yeah.
I said this is a movie that you can't leave to go to the bathroom. It's a long movie. Do not go to the toilet during this movie. You will miss something integral.
I want to start off with my my least favorite part of the film, and that is down to not the acting, but the character motivation.
You're going to say Chris Hemsworth, aren't you?
I am going to say Chris Hemsworth.
Oh. No!
The acting I loved. I think he was a great character. It was very well portrayed.
He was having so much fun.
Character motivation, however, I mean, can you explain what his character motivation was?
I fucking loved it.
He's a cult leader.
Yeah, he's like
a
no. That's describing what he is. Can you describe what his character motivation was?
When you're a cult leader and you're a sociopath on that level, you have no motivation. Your motivation is to destroy things.
Like, no, he had that connection with the sister. He saw her essentially as property. It was control. He saw
her as property. That's fine.
No, his motivation was to punish the sister and get the girl back. That was his motivation.
Because how dare someone take what's his? Yeah.
When you are,
and yet at the same time, he was willing to punish absolutely everyone else in there. Yes. They should have just turned her over immediately.
No, he's a sociopath. When you're a sociopath on that level, you want to destroy everything you can. That's his whole character. Whenever you saw his
whole character, his whole character was based off chaos. And we saw that in one scene of build-up to that. That doesn't tell you what the character's motivation is. It just kind of gives you a sense of what he does.
Actually, we see him in that earlier scene where he approaches her on the beach. Yeah. And then, obviously, we get that through line later on in the movie where we get the flashback that he is this cult leader. It's complete Charles Manson. And
exactly.
Was that around the same kind of time frame as well?
Funnily enough, isn't that exactly what the next Tarantino film is going to be on?
Yes. Yeah, it is. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Maybe they traded notes, or maybe some scripts got exchanged or something. I don't know.
But you get to see what his character is like. It's this man that's like, it's two 13-year-old girls to fight each other to share a bed with him. Like, if that doesn't tell you what kind of character he is and what his motivations are, then you haven't paid very much attention.
Okay. My next
not in a bad way.
First movie review, she's already getting too
my next big thing which I disliked about the film was the ending. It just felt really tacked on. I would have preferred it to leave it there with the hotel burning and then disappearing off. I didn't want to see her go to Reno. I mean, she's got a bunch of cash now. Why the fuck would she still go to Reno?
I think if we didn't...
Why would he even follow her to Reno? They didn't even make a big enough connection. In fact, they hated each other at most points.
No, they were sitting there and they were almost getting murdered together. Like, when you're sitting with someone and you're about to die together, that's like, I'd say that's quite a big connection that you've drawn together. You've been through this horrible thing and now you're on the other side with each other.
And at this point as well...
He tried to drug her. She smashed his head with a bottle. She held him at gunpoint.
That was irrelevant after they went through everything.
That was all a test. Until they were on the same level.
They helped each other get money. They helped each other survive through being almost murdered to death.
And I do think by the end of the movie, like, the biggest character arc for me, although I mentioned it was, oh God, what's her name? I have forgotten it. What is her name? Cynthia Erivo's character. I would argue it's Miles. Throughout the entire movie, he's seeking absolution. And I think in that moment where Jeff Bridges is obviously posing as a priest, he's not a priest at all. He was, like an old-time bank robber, armored car robber, and he's seeking what's his essentially because, I think he said his brother died, didn't he, or something. Like He got through in jail for about 10 years. He's gone through absolute hell. He's been told that he's got, you know, Alzheimer's and he's going to die. This guy's got a ticking clock, and he essentially just wants this one last score to say that it was all worth it, essentially. But by the end, when he sees Miles, who's, you know, was in the Vietnam War, he's completely broken of how many people he's killed, all the complete debauchery and, you know, treacherous things he's had to witness.
He was a heroin addict as well.
Heroin addict. When he has to step up and confess, I think that does change Jeff Bridges' character, and I think it makes him see what's important, and it's not all about the money. It's about, you know, like what he can do for that. So he gives half to Cynthia's character. She pursues a, you know, career, and we still know that he's going to die at some point, but we see him just kind of doing what's right by him and kind of clearing his own conscience a little bit as well, as he did with Miles's character.
Personally, for me, my preferred ending would have been Jeff Bridges' character also dying and Cynthia's character being the only one who's lived. And I know that Chris is thinking about that now as well. Because I see that smile, Chris. That's the smile of a bittersweet ending.
You just want. I think once you have Miles' death, which is arguably the most dramatic, emotional death of the movie,
Jeff Bridges should have been double crossed by Cynthia at the end.
No.
But then that would have undermined her entire character for the entire story.
I think that her character motivations changed as soon as she accepted that she was not going to kill him and look for the money. No. I think that's her way out. And for me personally, I think it's a more fitting ending to have these 7 people go in and the one person who is almost the most innocent out of all of them to walk away with the money and end up being the killer.
Tate, this isn't Cabin in the Woods. We're not playing by horror movie logic here, where you have final girl. Like, no, we don't do. Like, I think if you kill Jeff Bridges.
No, she walks out as by far the strongest person there. Another point I want to make out here from this ending, Lewis Pullman's character, the war scarred veteran, absolutely loved that story arc. Loved the Vietnam bit at the end. He knows that the little girl went and murdered 2 people, as they'd already spelled that out to her in the roulette scene. Why on earth did he go over to her and try and comfort her when he knew that she was a mass murderer, basically?
Maybe he thought he could change her. He didn't want to kill.
It's the thing. If you're in a cult and you're being brainwashed, you don't automatically think like, oh, that person's evil. You think they're a victim of it.
And ultimately, like, this is still a 13-year-old girl. Like, you know, there is a chance of redemption there.
I'm sorry, but he's been kidnapped by the 2 people for so long. He should know that she is a complete psycho.
But you think of her like as a child, like you couldn't in your mind like just go out and shoot her, because you still think there's some innocence because she's quite young.
And also you have to like remember as well that
she like condemned her own sister to death like 10 minutes earlier,
and there's no remorse. And I love that about it. When her sister gets gunned down in front of her, there's not even her face.
Yeah, and they're sharing an eye connection, and she's just staring blankly at her. It's like, that's cold.
And that shows that power that Chris Hemsworth's character's over her, like that hold that he's had over her, and I absolutely love that. And then as soon as he dies, wow, then she's hysterical. That was great. Also, going back to the whole like child thing, like although we don't explicitly see it in the movie, it's obviously it would have happened in that historical context. Being in Vietnam, imagine how many children he would have seen brutalized, killed, raped every day. Like, he doesn't, you know, now he's at this point in his life, he doesn't want to inflict harm on anyone. He wants to try and save as many people as he can. Like,
after killing literally everyone, including the people in the car park.
Well, that's when he sees what the cost of doing that would be. Maybe that turnaround was a little bit quick, but they still have that moment where he's like, I can't kill anyone, and he's like going hysterical.
Killing an adult versus killing a child are 2 different things, though.
And that's when Cynthia steps up as well and kind of says, like, she doesn't even like say like, you're going to pick up that gun and you're going to save her. She goes like, okay, no, like,
it's okay.
It's okay.
And I think that was the moment where I did like that moment because it was accepting death. But what's very interesting was I liked moments from that scene, but I wasn't convinced by the scene in general. So I liked the moment where it showed the flashback to Vietnam. I thought it was very surprising that they'd go and do one final flashback in the middle of the final fight. I liked the moment of it's okay. I liked the moment of the confession. I didn't like the overall scene. I liked the scene beforehand with the kind of interrogation roulette game type thing.
Oh, that was
very intense.
That is going to be one of my favorite scenes from this year.
I have to say that is also one of my favorite scenes from this year. The part where she's singing and he just basically spins the thing and says, "I've heard better."
Yeah,
brilliant.
But she
really like that.
Completely deconstructs his character there, and I love that where she says like, "You're just like, you know, a scared little man, or this peacock facade that you're putting on. Like, I've heard it all before." And then he goes to speak again, she just cuts him off, and there he hasn't got an answer for her. He doesn't even know what to say. So then he just resorts to the roulette. I love that moment.
So my final negative thing before I go on to my biggest positives from the film. I did mention earlier the music. What are the where do you hear music in the film? Because there are specific points that you can hear the music coming from in the film.
Is it always when someone's double crossed?
No. As in, like, where the music is actually coming from.
Oh, it's the jukebox.
The jukebox and Cynthia's character.
Yeah.
And then there is a couple of scenes where you can hear Motown in the background for no apparent reason. And I know that it's the aesthetic of, oh, it's Motown, we've got to have Motown in there and stuff like that. And I like the idea of Motown being throughout the entire film. But I just don't think it suited some of the scenes that it was in. The scene where Jon Hamm breaks into the room, you actually listen. There is Motown playing. There is nothing that Motown is coming from, but there is Motown playing.
Wasn't it from the car? The car radio?
It wasn't from the car, because all the cars had the electricity pulled out of them, so there couldn't be any music coming from the car. So you have a setup where you have the jukebox playing the music, and you've got Cynthia, the musician, playing the music. So why on earth do they have scenes where there is background music with nothing from it to come from?
Wasn't that whenever, who do you call her? Cynthia and Thing were in the room playing music together?
No, I like that.
That happened all at the same time, because she hits the priest over the head and then runs out as he breaks into the room. So the music's still playing from the room that she was in.
Yeah.
With Jeff Bridges.
I'd have to rewatch it. In that scene.
I'm talking about the scene where Dakota
I know.
Johnson's character is holding the little sister hostage, and Jon Hamm breaks in.
But
there's no way the music would travel from the main center.
It's all happening in like one concession.
It's I just had a little qualm with that. That's a tiny little thing from the film. Biggest positives. I liked the tension building that it had throughout the entire film.
Oh yeah.
The cold open was excellent. And I still was thinking, is that Jeff Bridges at the start? It was still in the back of my mind. Is it Jeff Bridges? Did he go there and not find the briefcase, and he's coming back to try and get it again? So yeah, I really, really loved the tension that they built throughout the entire film. Probably the best scene for that is the roulette scene.
There are so many tension building.
I like the one where he's like, where she's singing and he's having to slap the wood. That was a good one.
Yeah. So we talked about the roulette one. That was one of my two favorite scenes in the movie. The other one, probably my favorite, was that one. Because you're trying to work out what's going on. Like, you just seen
and she's just staring at her through the screen, like, and you know that if he messes up, that's it.
It's how long she stays there and watches her as well. Like, you're just waiting for, because they don't, obviously in the room, they don't know. They know that someone's probably there. They're having to keep up a front in case someone is watching, because there's a two-way mirror. Kind of like Cabin in the Woods again. There's a whole two-way mirror section in that film.
Oh.
Go on, sorry.
I've just remembered another point that I don't like about the film.
No.
Okay, let's you Debbie Downer. Come on.
It's the second MacGuffin. The money is a great MacGuffin.
It's a simple plot. It's a simple plot.
Why did they have the film tape? Because that had absolutely zero relevance to the plot, and that is completely encompassed by the fact that they throw it away in the fire at the end.
No, that was what
zero motivation to any of the characters.
No, that's what Jon Hamm's character was there for. He was there for that reel.
Was he there for the reel?
He was there for the reel. You heard him phone out in the yard, like he was like, they said, get every reel, don't care about the kidnapping.
Because he was like an FBI agent, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And he was trying, because, by the way, that was going to be my question. I was going to end on this, but we may as well say it now, because we were on the same wavelength. What did you think was on the tape? It's never explicitly said, but it is very much hinted as to what it is.
1960s, right?
Yeah.
Let's see if he gets it right.
Yeah.
It's got to be JFK, Marilyn Monroe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Has to be. They didn't really need to spell it out. I just think that killing off Jon Hamm's character at that point without him actually specifically, if he got hold of the tape and then it was found on his body, that would have made it more interesting. That would have made it more of a mystery. If more than one person was going for the tape, I would have also enjoyed it. But in the end, it was just one person really going for the tape, and it was burnt at the end. So the motivation was barely there.
Well, he wasn't expecting anyone else to be there, I don't think. No. Like, obviously, he had no control that Jeff Bridges was going to be there and that Cynthia's character, and that's what all these like hapless people come to the hotel, and then all these interconnected plot points get all jumbled up for the event that happens. I was really upset when John Hamm died as early as he did in the movie, because he was great in the film. He was so entertaining. The first part of the movie, he was without a doubt my favorite character, and I just love seeing John Hamm in anything. He's a great actor. But they do kind of repeat it and they do play around it. And I do think that that needed to happen at that point in the movie. You needed that escalation. That was the linchpin, essentially, which kickstarts the entire movie, and that all the other plot threads converge around that one moment. So it did need to happen. It's just a shame that it had to be John Hamm's character. Yeah. I don't know what else I can say about this movie. Oh, the other scene that I absolutely loved, other than the confession scene at the very end of the movie, was Jeff Bridges saying that he's got Alzheimer's. By God, that is one of the most emotional performances I think I've seen all year. And when I get to the end of this year, and I've said this as well, like 2018 for movies was the absolute pits. And then October came in from the cut, and just it absolutely turned the tide of the movie year. I don't think I've even seen, apart from Venom, I don't think I've seen a bad movie this year in terms of October. But
so Chris, are you considering First Man a good movie?
It's an average movie. It's
a good movie, Chris. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a fine movie. The review for that is coming tomorrow, by the way. So check tomorrow for our review on First Man. But when I get to the end of this, I'm still remembering scenes from this movie, scenes that have stayed with me, scenes that I would hold up in some of the best movie scenes I've seen in the last 10 years. I think when we've only got like a couple more months, when 2018's been and gone, I'm still going to remember this movie, and I can't wait to buy this film on Blu-ray and watch it again and relive these scenes. Will these scenes still have an impact on me, watching it a second time? Maybe not as much as the first one. Maybe it will die down a little bit. But I will never forget my first time watching this movie with a story, a film that I was completely just enraptured by, swept up in, and couldn't wait to see how it unfolded. Great performances, interesting characters, a unique plot that you don't see in many movies. It's a very simple plot in that they're essentially after money, but there's so many other things that go on. There's loads of twists and turns. And I love films structured like this, where an event will happen and then you'll go back and you'll see it from a different perspective and a new, unique way of looking at things. I honestly can't praise this movie enough, and it's just such a shame that they are really nerfing the release of this thing. The budget was 32 million. It's currently made 21.4. I don't think it's going to make it back. I really, really don't. And I think that the sad thing is this movie will probably go down as 2018's lost gem. Like, I don't think many people will see this, but I do think it has the potential to develop somewhat of a cult following, during home video, if more people go and see it, word of mouth. I think most people are enjoying this movie from gauging from the audience's reaction and things like that. I loved it. I definitely recommend people go and see it. Over to you.
You said everything I was going to say.
You can't say that. You have to say something new.
Oh my God. Pretty much said it all.
Okay.
We agreed on pretty much everything, though, didn't we? When we came out of it.
I enjoyed the film. I am keen to see what the rewatchability factor of it will be. I think it will have a good rewatchability factor, as in it'll be one of those films where I'd happily watch it again. But at the same time, I don't think you're going to have as much of a positive reaction the second time you watch it. I might actually have a more positive one. You never know.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just maybe it is me being a little bit nitpicky and kind of things which I like from the film. And maybe it's because in my head, I've got a wildly different ending to the film.
Had I have not bigged this film up as much as I did before you went to see it, do you think you might have enjoyed it more? Or do you think you'd still been pretty much around the same as you are now?
Pretty much the same as I was now. Because I'd say the description of what you said when you went into the film expecting absolutely nothing and coming out absolutely mesmerized, that's the kind of feeling I had for A Star Is Born. Went into it, hadn't even seen the trailer, and went into it and absolutely loved it. Still my favorite film of the year. But with this film, it's a good film, but I do still find flaws in it. And I think it would be a very good film to do a movie night in the future.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't go out and specifically buy it.
Okay.
I disagree.
Tough sell. We'll buy it. We'll
buy it.
Okay, so I guess that'll do it for our review on Bad Times at the El Royale. Be sure to comment, subscribe, let us know what you thought of the movie. Have you seen it? What is the release schedule like where you're at? Are they playing it at your cinema? Or maybe you're more like Tate, maybe you didn't like it. Anything regarding this movie?
I did like it.
Maybe you were nitpicky as Tate then. We'll put it to that. But yeah, anything regarding this movie, please do drop us a comment. We do look at all your comments. And speaking of comments, we've got a very special video coming out later this week. And I'm not going to give away what it is, but this was pitched by Tate, and I think it's an absolute genius idea. And yeah, so look out for that later in the week. Tomorrow, as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, we'll be going live for our review on First Man, which is the latest Damien Chazelle movie starring Ryan Gosling. And I'm sure we'll have a lot to say on that movie as well. We've got Film Club later this week. There's trailer reactions and all bunch of stuff, new show ideas as well that we're coming up with. And next week, we may as well announce it now. Why not? We have a very special Halloween-themed Battle of the Brackets, which I believe, Tate, are you judging on? You're fighting on that one?
No, I'm fighting. George is judging. So
all three of us might be fighting. It's going to be very interesting. And I think we may as well say what it is now. Did we decide what the topic was? Or are we still debating?
We didn't decide. We've got multiple ideas for what the topic is going to be. All we can say is it's going to be around spooky theming. So.
Maybe we could put it to a vote in on Twitter or on Facebook or something like that. So while we're saying that, social media links are in the description down below: Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Follow us on there so you get updates with regards to what's going on the channel, movies that we're seeing, and a bit of behind the scenes stuff like that. Thank you to Nicola, thank you to Tate, and until the next video, we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching.